Have you ever offered a simple kindness only to feel invisible in the very moment you thought you were seen? You hold the door and they walk past as if your presence meant nothing. You give up your time, your energy, your quiet sacrifices, and instead of gratitude, you receive a shrug, a sigh, maybe even a careless remark. The sting is sharper than you expect, not because the act was grand, but because it revealed how little your effort was valued. I have watched this pattern unfold in countless lives, including my own. Kindness given without measure slowly turns from a gift into an expectation. What once felt noble begins to feel heavy. And in that heaviness a question rises: was I too soft, or was I simply unwise? The Stoics remind us kindness is not weakness, it is strength disguised as gentleness. But strength must be guided, or it becomes prey to those who take without end. So let us look deeper into this paradox. How do we give without being diminished? How do we remain kind and still be respected? Stay with me, and we'll uncover what the ancient philosophers knew, that true kindness, when tempered by wisdom, becomes unshakable. As we step into the first chapter, the air feels heavy with a familiar weight, the quiet sting of giving more than you receive. You picture yourself holding a door open, waiting for a glance, a nod, a simple thank you. None comes. The silence echoes louder than any word could. In that moment you wonder if kindness has betrayed you. It feels noble to give, but why does it so often leave us bruised? This question haunts many, not because kindness is wrong, but because it can so easily be misread when left unguarded. Now imagine John, a neighbor whose heart is always open. He is the man people turn to in every small crisis. A forgotten key, a broken gate, a favor that interrupts his own life. He skips dinners, puts aside projects, sacrifices his rest. At first, his community showers him with gratitude. His name carries warmth. Yet over time, gratitude fades. What once seemed extraordinary becomes expected. One evening he says no. He has his own obligations, his own fatigue. But instead of understanding, he is met with frowns, whispers of disappointment, even criticism. What changed his heart is the same. His willingness was pure, but the world turned his kindness into currency, and when he stopped paying, they called him selfish. This is how kindness offered without wisdom works against you. Here's where Stoic philosophy cuts through the fog. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul is dyed the color of its thoughts." If kindness grows out of fear, fear of rejection, fear of being unloved, then the act itself is stained. It becomes dependency, not strength. But if kindness is born of clarity and inner values, it transforms into power. The Stoic does not give because he must. He gives because it reflects who he is. That distinction changes everything. Consider Sophia, an employee whose diligence shines like a beacon. She works late, picks up tasks no one else wants, fills every gap without complaint. At first, she is praised, admired. Her name spoken with respect. But soon her effort is no longer remarkable, it is routine. The day she finally refuses choosing health over overtime, she feels the shift. The admiration evaporates. Her boss is disappointed. Her co-workers mutter inconvenience. Sophia discovers a painful truth. Kindness without limits does not earn deeper respect, it breeds endless demand. This is where we must pause and look within. How often have you given not out of strength, but out of fear? How often have you traded your peace for the comfort of others? The Stoics teach that kindness must stand on the pillars of balance and wisdom. Without those, it collapses into resentment for the giver and entitlement for the receiver. To give endlessly is not virtue, it is surrender. At this stage, the lesson sharpens. Your kindness is not infinite, It is like a vessel poured too much without refilling, and it cracks under the strain. The world does not admire an empty well. It simply moves on to the next source of water. This is why boundaries matter. To set a boundary is not to say I care less. It is to say I will care wisely. When you guard the edges of your time, your energy, your heart, you do not diminish your kindness, you elevate it. You make it more precious because it is chosen, not extracted. Here's a moment to reflect. Think back to the last time you felt taken for granted. Did it begin with your own silence, your own unwillingness to draw a line? Often the harshest critic is not the person who demanded, but the part of us that allowed it. The Stoic way is not to resent others, but to examine ourselves. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If we cannot master our giving, we will always feel enslaved by the taking. From here, a shift occurs. When you begin to say yes with intention, not obligation, something changes in the air. Your kindness carries weight again. People sense its value because it is no longer automatic. Like rare coinage, it shines brighter because it is not scattered carelessly. And within you, resentment dissolves, replaced by dignity. The truth is piercing. Kindness used as a plea for acceptance will chain you. Kindness rooted in strength will liberate you. The difference lies in boundaries, quiet lines drawn with self-respect. You can open your heart without opening your veins. You can serve without being consumed. And when you do, your kindness becomes not just a gift, but a mirror reflecting your worth. So let us close this first chapter with clarity. Give with an open hand, but guard your soul with the other. Do not let your kindness be twisted into obligation. Do not allow the world to make your generosity a leash. Let every act of kindness be a choice born from strength, not fear. Because when you practice purposeful kindness, you do not just safeguard your dignity, you elevate the value of every gesture. Kindness is not meant to make you smaller. It is meant to reveal the power already within you. And as we move forward, this truth will lead us into even deeper waters. Moving into the second chapter, we step into a home where devotion hangs in the air like the scent of worn wood and late-night meals. A father named Mark stands at the center of it all, carrying the weight of his family's world on his shoulders. Every morning he leaves early, every evening he repairs what is broken, every weekend he shuttles his children from one obligation to another. He believes this is love in its purest form, never refusing, never pausing, never saying no. But watch closely. Gratitude, once bright and warm, begins to fade. At first, his children and spouse admire him, calling him dependable, steady, always there. Yet slowly, his constant yes transforms into an expectation. When exhaustion finally grips him and he dares to decline a request, the room chills. You always help, why not now? The question pierces deeper than fatigue. It reveals something darker. His sacrifice has not bred respect, but entitlement. His yes has lost its meaning because it was never allowed to rest against a no. Here's where the Stoics hold up the mirror. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your kindness flows from fear, fear of letting someone down, fear of being unloved, then your soul will carry the hue of dependency. You will not be admired for your devotion, you will be consumed by it. But when kindness is rooted in clear values, in conscious choice, it becomes strength. The difference is profound. One enslaves, the other liberates. Consider another story set not at home, but in a hospital ward. Lisa, a nurse with boundless energy, goes beyond her duty. She takes extra shifts, tends to patients with unmatched care, even covers for her colleagues when they falter. Her generosity is praised at first. She is called an angel, the kind of worker every team longs for. but time reshapes admiration into demand. Soon her absence feels like betrayal. One day she decides to rest, to reclaim a day for her own health. The response is not compassion, it is disappointment, whispers of her not being as committed as before. Lisa realizes that the praise was conditional. Her kindness, when endless, became invisible. At this stage, the lesson strikes hard. Kindness without boundaries is not kindness, it is servitude. To give endlessly is to erase the value of the gift. Respect is not born in constant yes. Respect is born when kindness is measured, deliberate, anchored in truth. A wise gift is seen, a compulsive one is forgotten. The Stoics remind us virtue is not in pleasing everyone, it is in living in accordance with nature and reason. And nature teaches balance. Ask yourself now, how many times have you said yes while your whole being screamed no? How many nights have you stayed awake, bending your back beneath the weight of expectations you never chose? These are not acts of love, they are acts of fear, and fear corrodes dignity. When you give from fear, you are not giving, you are bargaining, trading your peace for fragile approval. This is where clarity enters. Boundaries are not walls that lock others out. They are frameworks that protect the meaning of kindness. Without them, devotion rots into demand. With them, every act of care becomes radiant again. To set a boundary is not selfishness, it is self-respect. It is saying, I value my energy so that when I give it, you may know its worth. Seneca once wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." In the same way, he who gives to all without pause gives nothing of true value. Picture this Mark deciding one evening not to fix the broken hinge, but to sit with his own exhaustion and breathe. The family resists. They mutter, they guilt, they tug at his pattern of endless yes. But in that moment, he is teaching them a truth greater than any repair. A man who honors his own limits teaches others to honor them too. Over time, his refusal becomes not a wound, but a boundary that raises the worth of his contribution. His kindness is not diminished, it is purified. Now consider Lisa. She chooses one afternoon to walk away from the ward and tend to her own body. At first, her colleagues call it selfish, but she returns the next day renewed, sharper, more present. And slowly they learn her care is deeper because it is chosen, not extracted. Her no is as valuable as her yes because it makes her yes sincere. From here, the message is undeniable. If you give without boundaries, you will be drained. If you give with purpose, you will be respected. The Stoic way is not to shut your heart, but to guide it. To pause before each request and ask, does this align with my values? Am I giving from sincerity or from fear? These questions are not indulgent, they are essential. They are the difference between living as a servant of approval and living as a steward of your own soul. And here's the power waiting for you. When you dare to set boundaries, you do not shrink your kindness, you amplify it. People may resist at first, but eventually they will see the strength behind it. Your presence will no longer be taken for granted. Your kindness will no longer be invisible. It will stand as a conscious act of goodwill, unshaken by expectation, glowing with the dignity of choice. So we close this chapter with a line cut deep. Boundaries elevate kindness. They protect it from erosion. They remind others that your yes is precious because it is not automatic. And as we carry this truth, we step into the next chapter, where kindness guarded and deliberate becomes not weakness, but power. Advancing to the third chapter, the scene shifts to a man named Jack, a father whose generosity seems endless. He is the one with the open truck, the open hands, the open heart. Whenever someone is in need, he shows up. He carries boxes, he shoulders burdens, he adds other people's problems onto his already crowded plate. At first, the world applauds him. His friends call him reliable. His co-workers nod with admiration. His family beams with pride. But admiration, when fed, constantly changes shape. It hardens into expectation. Now picture this moment. One evening, Jack is drained. He cannot lift another box, cannot solve another crisis. He whispers the simplest of words, no. He believes those around him will understand. Instead, the air thickens with disappointment. Criticism slips in where gratitude once lived. His kindness, pure in intent, has been redefined in their eyes as weakness. What was once gift has become obligation. And the moment he refuses, he feels the sting of being misjudged. This is where Stoic wisdom presses its hand on our shoulder. Marcus Aurelius urged, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." To give endlessly without self-assertion is not right. It is not true. True kindness is not measured by the number of sacrifices you make, but by the integrity that anchors them. If the soul gives only to avoid rejection or to please, it does not strengthen, it bends, and finally it breaks. Consider Emily. She is a mother who lives the script of silent sacrifice. Every hour is spent on others. Every hobby abandoned, every moment of rest surrendered. At first, her family thanks her, but soon her absence from herself becomes the very air they breathe, so ordinary they forget it costs her. One day she dares to claim an evening. A book in her hands, her body stretched on a mat, the stillness of yoga surrounding her. At first, her family resists. They protest. They guilt. Yet Emily holds the line. She understands that if she does not, her well will run dry. Over time, her family begins to see this act of self-respect is not selfishness. It is love in its truest form, because she returns fuller, calmer, more present. Here's where the lesson sharpens. Boundaries are not walls. They are tools. They do not close people out. They keep relationships healthy. They make kindness clearer, sharper, more respected. To decline an invitation that drains you is not cruelty, it is honesty. To limit how much you lend a friend who never returns what he borrows is not harsh, it is justice. Epictetus taught, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." If you cannot master your giving, you are chained to the demands of others. At this stage, imagine another picture. A friend comes to you again and again, asking for money. At first, you believe in his need, but the pattern grows. Promises fade. You feel the quiet ache of being used. Without boundaries, the cycle never ends. With a firm but respectful limit, something changes. You are no longer complicit in his weakness. You challenge him to face it. That discomfort may sting both of you, but in the end, it plants the seed of a healthier bond. From here, clarity rises. A no spoken with thoughtfulness can carry more respect than a yes offered under pressure. People may not like it in the moment, but they will feel its truth. They will sense the integrity in your stance. And you will feel something greater. You will feel your dignity return. Seneca wrote, "A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver." When your intention is rooted in strength, not fear, your kindness regains its purity. This is where courage is required. It takes strength to disappoint others for the sake of not abandoning yourself. It takes clarity to see that your worth is not in how much you bend, but in how firmly you stand. The world does not need martyrs who vanish under the weight of endless yes. It needs men and women whose kindness flows from inner conviction, steady as a mountain stream, clear because it is protected at its source. Think back. When was the last time you said yes to something that hollowed you out? When did you trade your peace for someone else's approval? These moments, though small, carve deep grooves in your soul. but so too can a single no carve a new path, one lined with respect, one that teaches both you and others the true value of your contribution. So let us close this chapter with steel in our voice. Kindness is not submission. It is not surrender. It is strength when it is born of self-respect and guided by wisdom. Set the boundary. Say no with grace. Live in alignment with your values. Because in doing so, you teach the world that your kindness is not to be exploited, it is to be honored. And as we turn toward the next chapter, this truth becomes the foundation for something even deeper, a balance where kindness and self-worth walk hand in hand. Entering the fourth chapter, I recall a moment that still lingers in my chest, like the echo of a lesson I almost missed. A few years ago, a close friend's car broke down. She was drowning in bills, unable to afford a mechanic. I spent my entire Saturday with grease on my hands and sweat on my back, diagnosing, sourcing parts, fixing what I could. At first, she was radiant with gratitude, bringing me coffee and pastries, her thank you, repeated again and again. But weeks later, when her car stumbled into trouble again, her voice on the phone carried no request. It carried assumption. Not, could you help, but when will you come? And in that subtle shift, I felt the weight of something darker, that my kindness had been recast from gift to obligation. Now imagine how that realization cuts. It wasn't that I did not want to help. It was the feeling of being owned by my own generosity. That was the moment I learned kindness without boundaries doesn't just drain you, it strips the very value from what you give. Gratitude dies, and what remains is entitlement. Here's where Stoic philosophy sharpens the picture. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. My distress wasn't the request. It was the story I had told myself that to say no would make me less kind, less worthy. But Stoicism teaches that true kindness requires wisdom. Without boundaries, kindness is counterfeit. With boundaries, it becomes pure. Consider Josh, a colleague of mine, always eager to help, always the one people turned to when work piled up. He wore his willingness like a badge of honor, but behind his smile, his shoulders slumped. The more he said yes, the more others leaned on him. Soon, his own work suffered. Resentment grew inside him like rust on steel. One day, he decided to stop. He set limits, declined extra tasks that were not his to carry, focused on what was truly his responsibility. To his surprise, he wasn't shunned. He was respected. His clarity drew sharper lines, and people learned to value his effort rather than abuse it. From here, let's widen the lens. I once saw a mother living in complete surrender to her family's needs. Every hobby abandoned, every hour spent serving her children and spouse. At first, they praised her sacrifices, but slowly, silence replaced appreciation. Her giving became the air they breathed, so constant they no longer noticed its cost. One evening she chose differently. She walked into a yoga class instead of scrubbing dishes. At first, the family resisted. The children sulked, the spouse complained. Yet over time they saw her return renewed, calmer, more alive. And with her renewal, they began to understand balance. This is where the lesson deepens. Kindness is not self-abandonment. It is not the slow erasure of your own joy to fuel the convenience of others. Seneca once warned, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." But how can others remain grateful if you give until your giving feels cheap? A kind gesture means more when it is chosen, not when it is coerced. A yes holds power only because it stands beside a possible no. Ask yourself in quiet honesty, Do I genuinely want to do this, or am I acting from fear? Fear of rejection, fear of losing love, fear of being called selfish. These questions slice through the fog. They draw the line between sacrifice that honors your values and sacrifice that empties you. Kindness without self-worth is a transaction. Kindness with self-worth is a gift. At this stage, the choice is yours. Will you let your kindness become invisible, expected, drained of meaning, or will you protect it so each act shines with sincerity? Protecting yourself does not shrink your love. It makes it radiant. It teaches others that your kindness is deliberate and therefore priceless. Picture the shift. The next time someone asks you, pause, you breathe, you measure your yes against your values. If it aligns, you give fully with joy. If it does not, you decline with grace. Either way, you remain whole. That wholeness is the soil where true kindness grows. And so the Stoic truth settles in. Kindness is not endless sacrifice. It is a voluntary offering that preserves your dignity even as it serves another. It is a bridge, not a chain. When you honor your own worth, your kindness shines brighter and lasts longer. When you forget yourself, you diminish the very thing you hope to give. So we close this chapter with one clear reminder: balance is the heartbeat of kindness. Protect your self-worth, and your kindness will never be mistaken for weakness. If this message resonates with you, subscribe for more reflections like this and share a simple word in the comments: balance. Because it is balance that turns generosity into strength, and it is balance that prepares us for the deeper lessons yet to come. At this stage, we arrive at the heart of the matter, where kindness is no longer a question of approval, but a test of inner strength. Kindness is a beautiful gift, yes. But if you have lived long enough, you know this gift can also leave scars. You pour yourself into others only to find your effort misunderstood, overlooked, or worse, taken for granted. The ache that follows is real. It can make you doubt the very goodness inside you. Yet Stoicism whispers differently: do not let the winds of ingratitude extinguish your flame. If the fire of kindness is rooted deep within you, no storm can erase it. Now imagine the sting of betrayal in a place where you gave the most. A co-worker you lifted up time after time, covering their tasks, sharing your knowledge, carrying their weight, takes the stage and claims the glory of a project you built together. You sit in silence, the applause echoing in their name, while your own contribution dissolves like smoke. That moment cuts deep. Your instinct may be to withdraw, to never give again. But here the Stoic path divides from the ordinary. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The worth of your kindness is not tied to their applause. It is anchored in your choice to remain true to what is right. From here, let us step into the intimacy of family life. A mother prepares every meal, cleans every dish, always the last to sit, always the last to rest. At first, her family thanks her, but gratitude fades. Over time, her devotion becomes invisible. An unspoken expectation replaces appreciation. If her kindness depended on being noticed, she would collapse under exhaustion and resentment. Yet if her actions flow from love and her own chosen values, her strength remains unbroken. Even when indifference surrounds her, her conviction holds. That is the kind of strength Stoicism teaches us to cultivate. Here's where the lesson sharpens. Ask yourself, why am I being kind? Where does my kindness originate? These are not easy questions, but they cut straight to the root. If you give because you crave validation, your kindness is fragile. It will shatter the moment recognition fails to arrive. But if you give because it aligns with who you are, because it expresses your principles and your self-respect, then it becomes unshakable. Kindness born of inner will cannot be stolen, diminished, or undone by another's ingratitude. Let's bring another perspective. Picture relationships that are one-sided, where kindness flows endlessly in a single direction. One person gives, the other takes. Over time, resentment and entitlement grow like vines that choke the bond. Stoicism reminds us that true kindness is not servitude. It is not a one-way street. It is the art of blending generosity with self-respect, empathy with reason. A healthy relationship is exchange, not exploitation. A yes rooted in dignity creates balance. A yes born of fear breeds chains. At this moment, Seneca's words strike with clarity. Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. But the wisdom hides in how we approach that opportunity. Kindness without wisdom weakens both giver and receiver. Kindness with wisdom strengthens both. Every gesture, when chosen with awareness, becomes more than comfort for another. It becomes a mirror of your own integrity. Consider again the quiet question only you can answer. Is my kindness constructive? Does it help both sides grow? Or does it silently erode my spirit while inflating the entitlement of another? The courage to ask this question reshapes the way you live. It turns kindness from a plea for approval into a declaration of self-respect. This is where kindness transcends its ordinary meaning. It becomes not just tenderness, but power, not weakness, but dignity. In a world that glorifies hardness, kindness offered with strength stands out like a light in the dark. It affirms your humanity without needing to shout. It commands respect without demanding it. It shows the world that gentleness and firmness can live in the same soul. From here, the Stoic way reveals its deeper promise. When you choose kindness, not because you fear losing respect, but because it reflects your values, you are already free. Free from the judgment of others. Free from the chains of expectation. Free from the bitterness that arises when kindness is misused. That freedom is the true strength Stoicism points us toward. So we close this chapter with a piercing truth. Kindness is not surrender. It is strength lived quietly but undeniably, a flame that grows brighter when it is guarded by self-respect and guided by wisdom. Ask yourself, does my kindness make me stronger or smaller? Does it bring me closer to my values or further away? If the answer is strength, then you have transformed kindness into an inner fortress, something untouched by disrespect, unbroken by ingratitude, something that allows you to walk through the world with quiet confidence, embodying both freedom and integrity. Yet every realization is only half the journey. Seeing how kindness can be twisted is important, but it is not enough. The true test is learning how to turn that awareness into power. The Stoics never lingered in warnings, they searched for transformation. So now we move from lessons carved by pain to strategies shaped by wisdom, from what weakens us to what restores us. This is the turning point where kindness stops being a weight on your shoulders and becomes the armor that protects your soul. As we step into the next chapter, the question sharpens like the edge of a blade. What if kindness was never meant to be sacrifice, but justice? Think about it. How many times have you given until you felt hollow, believing that self-denial was the highest form of love? Yet what if real love, real dignity, lies not in exhausting yourself for others, but in giving each what is due, including yourself? Now imagine a scale heavy on one side. Day after day, you keep adding your time, your energy, your silence. The other side, your own well-being, remains bare. At first, people cheer your generosity. they call you selfless. But slowly, their gratitude changes into appetite. They no longer see your giving as grace. They see it as their right. And in that moment, what once felt noble begins to taste bitter, because justice has been lost. Here is where Stoic thought gives us a compass. Epictetus taught first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. To be kind does not mean to bleed endlessly. It means to live in alignment with virtue, and virtue in the Stoic sense always carried balance. Justice is giving each what is deserved, your neighbor, your colleague, your friend, and yes, yourself. Without that balance, kindness becomes exploitation. With it, kindness becomes unshakable. Let's bring this to life with a story. I knew a man who never refused. His phone buzzed at midnight, he answered. His weekends vanished in the service of others. He believed this was goodness. But slowly resentment grew inside him like rust. One evening his child asked a simple question, "Why are you always helping them but never here with me?" That question cut deeper than exhaustion ever could. It showed him that justice wasn't being served. He was giving to everyone else but stealing from the ones who needed him most. From here, a new clarity arises. When you treat kindness as justice, your giving takes a new shape. You no longer say yes out of fear. You say yes because it is fair, because it is true. You say no not out of hardness, but because it protects the dignity of both sides. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." The same is true with kindness. When scattered without measure, it loses its essence. But when directed with fairness, it becomes powerful. Picture this, a leader in the workplace. One leader believes kindness is always saying yes, taking on every burden, shielding his team until he collapses. At first, they adore him, but soon they stop respecting him. They pile their unfinished tasks on his desk, and his own vision disappears. Another leader takes a different road. She listens, she supports, but she also sets limits. She expects accountability. She refuses to let her kindness enable laziness. And strangely, it is she who is respected. Her kindness is not mistaken for weakness because it is anchored in justice. Here's the paradox unveiled. If you wish to be endlessly kind, you will end up fueling entitlement. But if you choose to be kind within the framework of justice, your kindness will not only serve others, it will command their respect. Because justice brings clarity, and clarity brings dignity. At this stage, ask yourself with brutal honesty, is my kindness a gift or a leash? Does it empower the people around me, or does it quietly teach them to take me for granted? Justice demands that we look at both sides. True kindness nurtures without corrupting. It uplifts without enabling. It gives without erasing. This is where the Stoic strength lies. To live justly is to live with integrity, to give neither too much nor too little, but exactly what is needed. And sometimes what is needed most is not your sacrifice, but your refusal. A refusal that awakens the other to their own responsibility. A refusal that says, I will not harm you by making you dependent. That is kindness in its highest form. So let the message settle in. Kindness is not martyrdom. It is justice in action. It is knowing that to give without measure is to create imbalance, and imbalance is the seed of disrespect. When you root your kindness in justice, you protect not only yourself, but also the meaning of what you give. And as we move forward, this lesson opens the door to something even greater, how the boundaries we set do not shrink our kindness, but elevate it into respect. Moving into the second chapter of this new path, the air feels different, heavier with truth, but also lighter with possibility. The lesson has shifted. It is no longer about surviving the wounds of misplaced kindness, but about learning how to set boundaries that elevate rather than diminish what we give. Boundaries are not chains that bind. They are wings that allow kindness to fly without collapsing under its own weight. Now imagine a person who never draws the line. Their life becomes a revolving door for demands. People walk in, take what they need, and leave without looking back. At first, the giver feels noble, but slowly they feel hollow, wondering why their effort breeds entitlement instead of respect. It is here the Stoics whisper, boundaries transform kindness from something forgettable into something unforgettable. Here's where Marcus Aurelius guides us. He once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Setting a boundary is exactly that, an act of mastery over your own mind, a refusal to hand the reins of your energy to others. It is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the art of teaching others how to meet you in the space of respect. Consider the story of Clara, a woman I once knew. In her workplace, she was the first to arrive and the last to leave. She absorbed tasks her colleagues neglected, smiled through late nights, and became the silent foundation on which others leaned. At first, she was applauded, but soon her devotion transformed into expectation. When she finally dared to say, "I cannot take this on," the faces around her shifted. Some frowned, some muttered disappointment. Clara braced herself for rejection, but something unexpected happened. Over time, the tone changed. People stopped assuming she would always save the day. They began to take ownership of their own duties. Respect grew in the soil where resentment once thrived. Her boundary didn't shrink her kindness, it protected it. From here, the paradox is clear. Many fear that drawing limits will make them seem selfish, but the truth is the opposite. A kindness without boundaries teaches others to consume. A kindness with boundaries teaches others to value. Seneca once reminded us, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Boundaries are that proof. They show that your kindness is not a reflex born of fear, but a deliberate choice born of strength. Picture this in the intimacy of family. A mother always on call, always available, never taking a breath for herself. Her devotion seems admirable, but it becomes an unspoken expectation. When she finally claims a single evening for rest or reflection, the family resists. They call it unusual, even selfish. But as time unfolds, they see the difference: her renewed energy, her calmer presence, her deeper joy. That one evening, fiercely protected, becomes a gift, not just to her, but to all who love her. Boundaries in this light are not barriers, but bridges. They connect more honestly than endless sacrifice ever could. Here's the deeper truth. Boundaries remind us that kindness is not infinite currency. It is a treasure, and treasures lose meaning when scattered carelessly. To say no when the request betrays your values is to say yes to the dignity of your own soul. Epictetus taught, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." When you set a boundary, some will misunderstand. They may call you cold, they may call you selfish, but in time they will see, or they will drift away, leaving room for those who respect you. Either way, you remain free. Ask yourself in the quiet of your own thoughts, how many times have I said yes with resentment burning beneath my smile? How many times have I betrayed my own needs in the name of appearing kind? These are not small betrayals. They are fractures in the foundation of your being. Every boundary you refuse to set is a silent permission slip for others to cross the line again. And yet there is hope. It begins with small steps, declining a request politely, protecting an hour of solitude, refusing to lend what you know will not return. Each small no strengthens the walls of your inner citadel, And within those walls, kindness can breathe again. It can be offered without bitterness. It can be received without exploitation. This is where transformation takes root. Boundaries do not reduce kindness, they refine it. They strip away the fear of rejection and leave behind only sincerity. They turn acts of giving into conscious choices rather than compulsory habits. They elevate your presence in the eyes of others, not because you give endlessly, but because you give wisely. So let us close this chapter with a truth as sharp as steel. Boundaries are not the enemy of kindness, they are its guardian. Without them, your kindness will rot into resentment. With them, your kindness will command respect. And as we move forward, the path leads us into something even greater, how kindness, when practiced with wisdom, becomes not just respected, but influential, shaping lives and environments in ways louder than any words. Advancing to the third chapter, we arrive at a place where kindness takes on a different weight, not as sacrifice, not even as protection, but as influence. Think of the quiet force of water shaping stone. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, but over time it leaves its mark in ways nothing else can. In the same way, when kindness is offered with wisdom, it becomes more than a good deed. It becomes authority. Now picture a leader in the workplace. Two figures stand in contrast. The first showers everyone with endless yeses. He takes on extra work, shields his team from consequences, and bends until his spine can no longer hold. At first, the team loves him, but slowly they stop respecting him. His kindness has no weight because it has no limit. Then there is the second leader. She listens, she supports, but her kindness is measured, deliberate. She doesn't solve every problem, but when she acts with clarity. Her team leans in not because she does everything for them, but because when she chooses to act, her kindness carries weight. That is the difference between kindness as service and kindness as influence. Here's where the Stoics add their wisdom. Seneca once said, "To govern was to serve." But he never meant service as submission. He meant service as strength, the kind of service that uplifts others by calling them to rise, not by carrying them endlessly on your back. True kindness influences not by enabling weakness, but by drawing out strength. Consider the story of Elena, a teacher. She began her career trying to rescue every struggling student. She stayed late, redid their assignments, carried their burdens for them. At first, the students adored her, but their dependency grew and their own effort shrank. Frustration gnawed at her. One day, she shifted her approach. She stopped doing their work and started guiding with firmness. She still encouraged, she still cared, but she required their own effort. Slowly, she noticed the change. The students began to respect her more deeply, not for doing everything, but for inspiring them to do it themselves. Her kindness became influence, shaping lives in ways her old approach never could. From here, the lesson sharpens like iron in fire. Kindness without influence fades. It may be admired for a moment, but it leaves no imprint. Kindness with influence transforms others. It builds character, trust, and respect that outlives the moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The man or woman who lives this way does not seek applause. They embody kindness as a principle, and embodiment is influence. Think of a household. A parent who constantly gives in to every demand may think they are being kind, but soon their children confuse indulgence with love. Discipline is lost, respect erodes. Yet another parent who loves fiercely but holds firm boundaries teaches something lasting. The child may resist in the moment, but later when they face the world, they carry the lessons etched by that strength. The parent's kindness becomes influence that shapes character, not comfort that fades. Here's the paradox unveiled. Influence through kindness does not come from doing more. It comes from doing less, but with greater intention. One carefully chosen word, one gesture rooted in truth, can shift the direction of another's life more than 1,000 small concessions. Epictetus wrote, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." To embody kindness with self-respect is to lead without forcing, to guide without shouting. At this stage, reflect on your own presence. Do people value your kindness, or do they simply expect it? Do your gestures carry weight, or are they invisible? Influence is born when kindness is not scattered like dust, but placed like stone, firm, deliberate, undeniable. Each act then becomes a statement. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. Imagine the quiet power of someone who lives this way. Their kindness is steady, not desperate. Their words are measured, not scattered. When they speak, people listen, not because they are loud, but because their life has already proven the worth of their words. Influence is not granted by titles or applause. It is earned in the silent consistency of how we live. So let us close this chapter with a truth that cuts to the core. Kindness, when guided by wisdom, is not a weakness to be pitied, it is influence to be respected. To give blindly is to be forgotten. To give deliberately is to shape the world around you. Influence through kindness is not about being liked. It is about being remembered for the strength of your character. And as we move forward, we will uncover another layer, that the greatest power of kindness may not be in its volume at all, but in its silence. From here we enter the fourth chapter, where kindness takes on its quietest, yet most powerful form, silence. Think of the moments when words would only cheapen the truth, when explanations would sound like pleading, when arguments would fan the flames instead of quenching them. There is a strength in silence that many fear, but the Stoic embraces, because silence, when grounded in conviction, is louder than any speech. Now imagine this scene. A colleague mocks you in front of others, expecting a reaction, a retort, a flare of anger. But you remain calm. You meet their words with steady eyes and unbroken composure. The room grows uncomfortable, not because you raised your voice, but because you did not. The mocker feels the weight of their own words echoing back at them, unchecked, unamplified. Your silence does the work. Your stillness carries the force they cannot match. That is silent kindness, refusing to poison yourself with bitterness, yet also refusing to fuel the fire of cruelty. Here's where Stoicism reveals its wisdom. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Silence is not passivity. It is mastery. It is choosing not to be dragged into the mud when others try to provoke you. Silence is a kindness to yourself, first sparing your soul from needless turmoil, and a strange kindness to others as well, forcing them to face the mirror of their own actions without your help. Consider the story of David, a manager constantly baited by one employee who thrived on stirring conflict. At first, David responded with explanations, reasoning, even long speeches to defend himself. But the more he spoke, the more the provocations grew. One day, David shifted. He stopped feeding the noise. He responded only with calm action and few words. The provocations fell flat. The employee eventually moved on, unable to fight with someone who refused to hand them weapons. David's silence became influence. His restraint was seen as strength. His quiet presence reshaped the atmosphere of the team more than any lecture could. This is where the paradox cuts deep. Many equate silence with weakness, but in truth, Silence can be terrifying to those who rely on your reactions for power. They expect resistance. They crave a response. When none comes, they are left alone with themselves. And that is a weight heavier than any argument. At this stage, reflect on your own life. How often have you wasted words on ears that refuse to listen? How many times did your explanations only dig you deeper into misunderstanding? Silence chosen with wisdom is not avoidance, it is discipline. It is the refusal to cast pearls before swine, to borrow from ancient imagery. Seneca once said, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." Silence is one of the clearest signs that you do. Picture another moment, this time in the intimacy of family. A child throws a tantrum shouting cruel words they do not fully understand. A parent reacts with shouting of their own, and the spiral grows. But a different parent remains steady. They wait. They let the storm of words pass. Then, when the child's breath slows, they speak with calm. The silence between the outburst and the response is where the true teaching happens. The child learns that words lose power against composure. Silence was not absence. It was presence held with strength. Here's the deeper layer. Silent kindness is not about ignoring pain or injustice. It is about knowing when words would wound more than heal. It is about conserving your energy for actions that matter rather than arguments that drain. It is about choosing dignity over noise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You always own the option of having no opinion." There is never a need to get worked up or to trouble your soul. To remain silent is sometimes to reclaim ownership of your soul when the world seeks to rent it cheaply. Ask yourself plainly, where has your voice been wasted? Where could silence have spoken more clearly? These are questions worth carrying, because silence is not emptiness, it is a presence others cannot easily bear. It unsettles it, forces reflection, it commands respect without demanding it. And so the truth settles in like still water. The strongest kindness is often the one that makes no sound. It shields your spirit, it disarms those who attack, and it teaches others the weight of their own words. Silence is not weakness, it is a choice. A choice to let your calm speak, to let your composure teach, to let your restraint echo louder than any shout. We close this chapter with a simple truth. Sometimes the loudest declaration of strength is the refusal to speak. And as we turn the page, we step into the final revelation, how kindness, when lived with balance and dignity, does not just survive the world, but transforms it into something higher. Entering the final chapter, we find ourselves standing before the full circle of kindness. What began as a gift offered outward is now understood as a force that must also return inward. Without that return, generosity rots into exhaustion. With it, kindness becomes something stronger than mere gestures. It becomes an inner source of dignity, resilience, and power. The Stoics knew this well. Every virtue, when practiced with wisdom, strengthens not only the receiver, but the giver. Kindness is no exception. Now imagine a flame burning in the center of a dark room. At first it flickers fragile, fed by your constant breath. You bend low to protect it, fearing it may go out. But over time, as you learn to shield it properly and feed it wisely, it grows steady. The flame begins to light the room, not because it burns itself out quickly, but because it learns how to endure. That flame is your kindness when it is guided by self-respect. It does not consume you, it sustains you. Here's where Marcus Aurelius steadies our hand. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The true strength of kindness lies not in demanding recognition, nor in bending until you break, but in living so firmly within your values that every act of kindness reflects your integrity. You no longer give because you must, you give because it is who you are. And when kindness flows from identity, it becomes untouchable. Consider the story of Thomas, a man who once confused kindness with compliance. He lent money he never saw again. He filled silence with endless yeses. His spirit grew tired and resentment crept in. One day he chose differently. He began saying no when his values required it. He offered help where it mattered, not everywhere it was demanded. At first, people were shocked. Some left his life altogether. But slowly, Thomas discovered something remarkable. His relationships deepened. His word carried weight. His kindness, no longer scattered, became powerful. What had once drained him now renewed him. From here we must pause and ask ourselves the brutal question: why am I kind? Is it fear of rejection? Is it hunger for approval? Or is it because I refuse to betray the values I hold dear? Stoicism insists we confront this question because the answer changes everything. Kindness born of fear is fragile. It shatters when unrecognized. Kindness born of strength cannot be broken, no matter how others react. Now picture another scene closer to home. A mother prepares every meal, cleans every dish, carries every burden. At first, her family praises her, but eventually her effort fades into the background, expected rather than valued. If her kindness is tied to applause, she will break. But if she acts from love anchored in her own self, respect, her strength remains steady. Even when unnoticed, her kindness carries dignity because it reflects her values, not her need for validation. That is the Stoic way to act rightly, not because others see, but because it aligns with who you are. Seneca sharpened this truth with clarity. Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Yet the opportunity is not only external, there is also the human being within you. To neglect kindness toward yourself while offering it freely to others is not virtue, it is imbalance. True kindness completes the circle outward to the world, inward to the self. Without that balance, you create entitlement in others and emptiness in yourself. With it, you create respect in others and strength in yourself. Let's step deeper into this paradox. The world often praises toughness as though hardness alone earns respect. Yet hardness without kindness is brittle, it shatters easily under pressure. Kindness without strength is hollow, it collapses under the weight of expectation. But when the two are joined, when kindness is guarded by strength, you become unshakable. Your tenderness does not make you weak. Your firmness does not make you cold. Together they make you whole. Think again of your own life. How many times has your kindness been mistaken for weakness? How many times have you wished you had said no? These regrets are not signs to stop being kind. They are signals to transform kindness into something stronger. Each no you speak with integrity deepens the respect others have for your yes. Each act of kindness chosen freely, not fearfully, becomes a reflection of your unbroken spirit. Here's the heart of it. Influence born from kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It is about showing others through your example what strength wrapped in gentleness looks like. When you live this way, you no longer chase respect, it comes to you. You no longer beg for gratitude, it flows naturally from those who truly see you. And those who cannot, they drift away, leaving space for what matters. At this stage, reflect on the circle once more. You give with clarity. You guard your flame. You allow silence to speak louder than noise. You set boundaries that turn your kindness from a leash into a shield. And now, with all of that, your kindness transforms. It becomes a force that restores you, even as it restores others. This is the cycle the Stoics lived: virtue practiced outward, nourished inward, strengthened in both directions. Epictetus offered the final word: "No man is free who is not master of himself." To master kindness is to master the balance of giving without losing yourself. It is to walk into the world with an open hand and a steady spine. It is to offer warmth without being consumed, to offer patience without being used, to offer love without betraying your dignity. So we close this journey with a truth that resounds like the strike of iron. Kindness, when shallow, will drain you. Kindness, when rooted in fear, will betray you. But kindness, when guarded by wisdom and guided by self-respect, becomes the greatest expression of inner strength. It is not something the world can take away. It is not something ingratitude can diminish. It is the quiet flame that lights your path, the shield that guards your soul, the circle that keeps you whole. And as you walk forward, carry this with you: kindness is never weakness. It is the power to live with dignity in a world that often forgets what dignity means. It is the mark of a soul that cannot be broken. It is the living proof that freedom and compassion can exist in the same breath. And when you embody this, you do not just practice kindness, you become it. We have walked through 5 powerful lessons about kindness, discovering how to protect it, refine it, and let it grow into true inner strength. You have seen that kindness, when guided by wisdom and guarded by self-respect, is not a weakness, but a force that shapes how others see you and how you see yourself. It is not about endless sacrifice. It is about giving in a way that reflects dignity, clarity, and love. Remember, this kindness without boundaries loses its meaning, but kindness rooted in purpose becomes a light no one can dim. When you give thoughtfully, you not only brighten the lives around you, you also strengthen your own soul. That light becomes a shield, protecting you while inspiring those who encounter it. Take a moment to reflect. Think of where your kindness has been honored and where it has been taken for granted. Share your thoughts below with a simple phrase: true kindness. Your voice may remind someone else that they are not alone in their journey. If this message touched you, consider subscribing so you can continue walking with us through deeper lessons in Stoic wisdom. Each step forward brings clarity, each reflection brings strength, and each story shared brings connection. Carry this truth into your days. Your kindness is not small, it is not fragile, and it is not wasted. When you choose to give with wisdom, you live in alignment with your highest self. Keep moving forward with courage, with balance, and with the quiet power of kindness. The next lesson awaits, and it may be the one that changes how you walk through the world.